Okay, it's RAM time. Bought these 2 sticks of RAM. I'm going to put 16 gigabytes in here. I ordered with 4 so I could save some money. Alright, here we can see that we have 4 gigabytes currently on this MacBook Pro. Okay, we flipped over the MacBook Pro, and this right here is where the screen folds up on the other side. Now to take off the back cover, I bought this. It's W-E-R-A. I don't know how to say. I believe it was made in Germany, and I don't know how to say the name, so it's W-E-R-A. It's a size Philips 00. Now, I looked at a bunch of these, and I don't know if the standards on a Philips 00, the specs aren't real tight, but everyone seemed to be slightly different fitting the hole, and I chose this one because it had good reviews. But I'm going to show you that this is how it fits in. And it does, but if I'm pushing down on the top now of the screwdriver and I'm spinning it a little bit, and you can see there's ever so slightly a small degree that the tip isn't perfectly fitting in, but I'd say it's more than usable for this purpose. I already did another one and had no trouble at all, so this is a nice screwdriver. It was a ESD model, meaning electrostatic discharge, which brings me to another point. The person doing this has a static bracelet, but we put it around his leg, so it's not encumbering his movement. And would you stick your hands out, please? He also has gloves on. This is not, I don't know, recommended. I don't say it recommended, but I know that you have some corrosive materials in your finger oils, so getting that all over the RAM and the inside of the computer, the laptop, I don't think that that'll be all that good idea. So we're going to wear those, and his static equipment is on his ankle, so you can't see it, and I can't move to see it all that easily. So now the RAM we got, looked up this company makes it real easy. You look up the name of the brand, the model type, and then what your actual processor chip is. We ended up with this. It comes with, inside, we'll see later, he has two 2 gigabyte sticks of RAM. These are 2. Let's see if we can see it here. Right here. An 8 gigabyte stick. So now having 2 of these, 2 times 8 is 16, so we'll have a 16 gigabyte RAM kit here that we're installing. Now, we're going to take the screws out, and I'm going to do this since it's easier for me to do. This is just a little trick so we know which way this back is oriented and don't have any problem. I'm going to put a little mark across right where my fingernail is. There's a line. This is where the back is separated from the actual laptop body. So I'm going to put a little line there. And then when we go to put the cover back on, all we do is match that line up. And on this cover, there's going to be some long screws and some short screws. We're going to find the long screws, and we're going to mark them with this pencil as well, like a little mark on the back, so you can tell where the long ones go and you're not putting the wrong size screw in the wrong size hole. So we'll find the long screws and we'll be back in a second. Okay, we're back. I loosened all the screws. Now if you remember, the person performing the internal work has a pair of gloves on, so I have my fingernails readily available so I can pull these screws out. Now this one, it's a long screw. This one, the long screw. and this one's a long screw. And so we can kind of see where we're at. Here's our slot to stick DVDs and CDs in, okay? And here's our hinge in the back. So when you're orienting your MacBook Pro, kind of use that as a guide. So we saw our 3 long screws. So I don't think that it's going to cause too much of a problem if we just put some marks here in the bottom. And these will be where we're putting our long screws back in. We're just using a black marker. They're nothing fancy, just some black marker rings so we can determine which were the long screws. Now, those were the long screws. Over here is an example of a short screw. You can hardly see it, and they're not a lot of fun to take out the small screws, but you have to take them out. So what we had here is, it's real hard to see. Here's a little bit of writing for identification purposes where to find these long screws. Here, 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 3 of them. This is a late 2011 MacBook Pro. And then the short screws we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, now the last thing I'll probably do while I have my fingernail hands as opposed to the rubber glove hands of the internal guy, so I'm going to try to take this back off. A lot of people took a screwdriver, a flat blade, a real small one, and they're sticking it in that little edge to get the back off. And I think my other one, I just stuck, if you stick a fingernail in here and kind of just push up ever so slightly, yeah, it comes up easily without jamming screwdrivers in. Let's see here. Okay, I'm just going to set this to the side. Okay, we're in the back, and this is what we're seeing. These parts, I believe, are, here's our battery, and it says battery right here on our battery, and this is our hard drive. And let's back up a little bit. Here's our, where we put CDs and DVDs in again. So here's that optical drive. And what else we got here? I would guess this whole thing's a motherboard, although I'm not a computer scientist or engineer. It might be different sections in it, but you got a couple of fans that go out behind the hinge where your screen, your display is hinged from. So right here is our RAM that we're looking at. And let's see if we can go in here. And do we see? Yes. Right where my fingernail is. I'm going to come around. Excuse me. I'm going to come around, and I'm just going to do a real quick look at this. Right there. Here's our 2 gigabytes of RAM right there at the end of my finger, we can see. So there's another stick underneath, you can't see it. We're going to start pulling out RAM sticks at this point. So go ahead and pull the first. Better if I approach from this way. Now what he's doing is, there's 2 little clips. Since I have the fingernail fingers, they're right here, There's another one on the other side. You have to use a little bit of judgment here, like when you're seeing this, because it's not. It just doesn't jump out and it's magical, so you have to use some judgment. So he's going to pull out when he pulled those two little clips away, the piece of the RAM popped out at him, and if you look, the second one seems to already partially pulled up for him as well, because the two sticks are kind of grouped close together. If you're not careful, it'll pop the second RAM stick out. Now, if we look at these, we have to pay attention here. First thing is, there's a slot right at the end of my fingernail, and that's going to go, oh, the camera needs to be, right where he's pointing with the screwdriver. That's where that lines up. The other thing that's important is, on the side of the RAM, there's a little divot here. There's a little divot here. And that kind of sits even with those little divots in our feet that hold it down from popping back out. Now, we also need to pay attention because this RAM stick looks pretty much like this RAM stick. So we need to be making sure that we're not setting RAM all over the place and grabbing the wrong piece of RAM. Okay, now if we look, there's two little, I think what you're seeing there, yeah, what's shiny here. I'm going to try to get this a little closer. What's shiny is the lower edge of right where my screwdriver tip is the slot, the space where this RAM stick fits in. And remember, we have to remember that little slot. So he's going to go ahead and pop that in now. It goes at a slight angle, like it angles up at you. Push it in. Takes a little bit of effort. Let me look at it. Now when it's in, the little row of teeth, gold teeth in the RAM, have almost disappeared into the slot. Wait, let me look at it a second. And on the back side, you notice between, there's a little space here, it's hard to see. Right where my screwdriver is, behind the back side of the RAM board and the actual laptop body, there's a little bit of a space there. See the space? You can see my screwdriver and hand shadow moving in the space, but not so much on the body or the RAM. Right there at the tip of the screwdriver, there's a little bit of the space there. So that one's in right, but you have to watch so you don't knock the first. When we opened it up and looked, when he pulled the first set of levers or little holders apart, this bottom one popped back out. So he has to be careful that he's not knocking that inner RAM chip out while he's installing the second. These lining up. Now, where the gold teeth, I was saying, on this chip here, this is the other one that we took out. See those gold teeth once again? If we zoom in there, the teeth, you can barely make them out when it's in the slot correctly. The other thing is the little foot you can see on both sides is holding down that RAM board. On this side you can see that it's in. So now we have the RAM in. All we have to do is put the back on. I guess I could set that back on. So when we're putting this on, remember our mark that we had right there at the end of my thumb? I'm going to line that up with the mark that's on the body that I showed you earlier, the main. Just kind of hover it over. And it fits. Fits back on. Okay, here our cover's back on. We'll just put the screws back in and then we'll check this RAM out, see if we got 16. Okay, here we are again. As we can see, here we got 16 gigabytes of RAM now with 8 gigabyte stick and an 8 gigabyte stick. Two of those is 16. It's not all that hard. You just have to be willing to get in there and give it a try without being scared. So that's it. Now I have 16 gigabytes on this. This was a late 2011 MacBook Pro with a i7 quad-core processor. Thanks.